Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday that you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. Nothing to kill or die for. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer.
I still have a dream.
But I'm not the only one.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I hope someday that you'll join us.
I have a dream.
And the world will be as one.
Well, that was great. That is a version of Imagine by my guest tonight, Billy J. Kramer, and I'm very excited to have Billy on. I met him many years ago, not that many years ago, but maybe, I'm trying to think, like maybe 12 or 13 years ago, when he was doing a show called British Invasion with some other friends, Joey Mullen from Badfinger and Terry Sylvester from the Hollies. And then Billy played at the Musquamicut Music Festival, which was great. And we've had the opportunity to spend some time with him, see him at the Cutting Room. He's taken me out to dinner with May Pang. He's a great guy, and we've gone to Sirius XM together to talk to Cousin Brucey. There's a lot of great stuff, and he's in Long Island right now with his wife Ronnie. And I'm going to bring on our legendary rock and roll singer, Mr. Billy J. Kramer.
Hello there. How are you doing?
Hey there. I love that version you did of Imagine. That was wonderful.
Well, yeah, it was. It was amazing because I made the track just in the attic where we used to live, and took it to Santa Fe on my iPad. And some people came around to where we were living, and I did this interview, and I said, "Can you help me with something?" And I just walked down the road into the desert, and I hooked the iPad up to an extension speaker, and then we just did it in about 20 minutes. I was amazed at how it's amazing. Modern technology, you see, but I was very pleased, and it was a weird time, there was a lot of unrest going on at the time, and I just thought it was something good to do,
Well, and modern technology is bringing you from your kitchen or your living room, wherever you're sitting now, into my basement. So it's pretty cool that we have. What have you and your wife been doing during this whole COVID thing? Obviously, all personal appearances are probably canceled.
Yeah. What have we been doing? Well, we mostly just like watching TV, eating ice cream. I put I now call it ice cream isolation.
Well, that sounds like a song, Billy.
I know.
So so let's talk. I mean, the people are watching us, and I wanted to put up some pictures on the screen from back in the day, and I wanted to go back to the beginning, if you're willing and able.
Absolutely.
Well, good. So Ben's going to put some pictures up on the screen. I want to go back, and first I want to know how you got the name. Well, I know, but I want you to tell the audience where you got the J in Billy J. Kramer.
I recorded the song "Do You Want to Know a Secret," which was my first record, and I got a call from Brian Epstein one day. He said, "Can you come into the office? I want to have a talk with you." And when I arrived there, John Lennon was there. And I said, "Well, what do you want?" He says, "Well, John's got a suggestion." I said, "What is it?" And John said, "Why don't you call yourself Billy J. Kramer? It'll give it more of a ring and make it the public be able to catch on to more easily, And I said, "Oh, that's a great idea." And I said to him, "Well, if anybody asks me what the J stands for, just say," and he said, "Julian." At the time, I didn't know he was, had a son, Julian. I didn't know. And I said, "No, John, I don't like that name." I said, maybe Jesus, or I'll just use it as an initial, but that's how it came about,
So what were you doing before you got into music, and after you finished school and stuff? Where were you working?
I was working for British Rail. I was working at a place called Aintree, where they have the big steeplechase thing there. Mm-hmm. For British Rail, I was a trainee engineer. Not an engineer here is somebody who drives a train. I was repairing them, taking them to pieces, and putting them back together.
Did you like that work?
It was enjoyable. It's so funny because I did my autobiography a few years ago, and I was lying in bed one night, and I said to Ronnie, I went, "I totally forgot." She said, "What?" I said, "I remember the famous steam engine, the Flying Scotsman."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I forgot that broke down right near where I was working at the time, and we went out and repaired it." That's where I was working, and then I went to a place called Bank Hall, which is near Liverpool, the centre of Liverpool, and I was working there. I was doing a lot of I had started doing a lot of gigs, and quite frankly, I was drinking a lot, and I was going into work, and I used to go into work and like clock on, and then I'd go and sit in the toilet because I was like hungover. And I thought, God, I can't keep this up, because I was playing nearly every night of the week,
Well, how did that start? I mean, when did you realize you could sing?
I always knew I could, because I sang in the choir at school, and the choir must have wanted me to sing solo, and I was too nervous and too shy. And then when I was putting a band together with my local friends, we tried different singers, and for one thing or another, it just didn't work out. And then one day it was my cousin who was in the band, Arthur, said to me, "Your guitar playing's not improving much. I just wanted to be strum a guitar." And he said, "So, I think you should give it a shot, because we're getting nowhere." And we used to rehearse at this club in Bootle, where I was born, in Liverpool. And they said to us, "You got to come and do a show on a Saturday night to pay for the electricity that you use and rehearsing every day." So we started playing this place called the Alpha, and it was just like old men playing dominoes and snooker and darts. But after a while, there was a big line outside the place every Saturday night, and eventually we said we got to get out of here. And we got this audition at a place called Aintree Institute. We didn't have a truck or nothing, And we put all the equipment on the sidewalk by the bus stop, and this bus pulled up. We threw all the gear on, and the conductor was screaming at us, you can't, because it's illegal. But anyway, we talked him into letting us stay on the bus, and we got to Aintree Institute. And funny, that was the first time I met the Beatles. And I did this audition for a guy called Brian Kelly, and it was the first paid gigs we got. They used to put the starter bands on early, and then the Beatles were playing later that night. But that's where I first met the Beatles.
Well, we've got some pictures on the screen, and there's a picture with John, Paul, George, and Ringo surrounding you. You're all holding a cup of something. Tell me what the relationship was like between the Liverpool bands, between Jerry and the Pacemakers, yourself, the Beatles, and how you all came to be managed by Brian Epstein.
Well, I was doing quite a few gigs with the Beatles, opening for them. They were sort of going out playing places like St. Helens and Skelmersdale, and away outside of Liverpool, a few miles outside. And I always got the gig opening for them. And funny enough, I didn't know Jerry that much. I'd seen him, but I did shows with all the bands like the Searchers and the Undertakers, the Big Three, and we're all playing the same sort of places like Blair Hall, Litherland Town Hall, the Iron Door, the Cavern, and then I did big shows at the New Brighton Tower, which with Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis, And funny enough, I was working at Bank Hall, and I got this thing from the boss about you have to find accommodation in a place called Crewe, because it was part of my training. I was going to do some training for a year with Rolls-Royce. And funny enough, I told all the guys that I'm going to have to pack this in, And then about a month before, my manager said, let's go into Liverpool on Saturday. So I went in, and we went to this restaurant, and Brian Epstein was sat there. And he said, the reason I brought you is because I can't do any more for you, but Brian would like to manage you.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Pardon?
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. And, quite frankly, I wouldn't have done it for anybody else. Because I felt secure that in 2 years I would have been a qualified engineer. And show business is very risky, but I could see that the moves he was making with the Beatles, they hadn't had any real big hits, but they hadn't even started recording. But I knew the Beatles were going to make it, and I could see what he was doing for them, and I jumped at it,
Can you take us, because there's so many people. I mean, when I talk to you, I realize your place in history, and it's pretty amazing. And you were an eyewitness, and you were part of that history. So, for all of us who were born too late to enjoy that, or weren't from Liverpool and didn't see it, take us to the Cavern Club. I mean, we hear so many stories. We see this grainy video. What was it really like down in the Cavern? Was it really cramped, tiny, and smelly, or was it an enjoyable club?
It was smelly, and they were always putting disinfectant down, and it was pretty gruesome. But funny enough, the Cavern, I don't know why, had a unique sound and a great atmosphere. It's funny because back then, people don't realize it. There was no fallback. Like we have. People have in-ear monitors today and fallback speakers on the front of the stage. We didn't have any of that. But at the Cavern, in front of you, just like about 30 feet out, there was a speaker that faced you, and you could hear yourself. And I always, believe it or not, I do say to people, the best place I ever heard the Beatles was at the Cavern.
I've heard that from a lot of people, and you guys all played. I mean, how many times do you think you played at the Cavern?
I'll have to look in the book.
tell us what the name of the book is, Billy.
It's called "Do You Want to Know a Secret?"
Well, that brings us to the songs, because you were the first person that the Beatles gave songs to. So tell us how that happened. I mean, was it mainly John that wrote those songs for you? And tell us how that came to be.
Well, I was with a band, local friends, and when I got the chance to turn professional, they didn't want to do it. A lot of people don't realize it. Like the Dakotas were already an established band on the circuit. Brian used to hire them to back people when they brought artists up from London. And the guys I was with didn't want to turn professional, and he suggested I get together with the Dakotas. And I went down to Cavern, and John and Paul were there. And we did a few songs, and John said, "It sounds great." So, they were good musicians. And I went back to Brian's office, and it makes me die, because I read these things in books. It's like, and the Dakotas would only go with Billy if they had their own, they've kept on their own. That's why it was with the Dakotas, and it pisses me off a bit. And I did some gigs with them, and then Brian gave me a tape of "Do You Want to Know a Secret?" And I rehearsed it with the Dakotas, and then, funny enough, I went off to Hamburg. That's a funny tale, because what happened was we'd done a recording test with, I don't know what company, in London, and I was waiting for a passport, and the Dakotas flew off to Hamburg, and I was in London on my own for a week. And man, that's the loneliest week I've ever spent in my life. And I went out to the pub the night before I was going to fly to Hamburg, and I got up late, so I had to save the money to get a taxi, but I blew it on the booze, so I had to get the bus to the airport. So I landed in Hamburg, and I walk out, and I was so naive. They came around with the food, and I refused it because I didn't think I could afford it. I get in this taxi, and I give the taxi driver a piece of paper with the address on. We pull up outside of the Star Club, and I jumped out the cab, and he ran after me screaming. And fortunately, John McNally from the Searchers, funny enough, came out and paid the taxi fare. They were rehearsing, and believe it or not, I walked inside to wait for the Dakotas to come pick me up, but I went to the Star Club and sat there, and they were rehearsing and doing that song "Sweets for My Sweet," which was actually the first record and the first #1. So anyway, let's get back to the "Want to Know a Secret." We did it in the set every night, at the Star Club, and a lot of times every night. And then when we came back to England, we did a test with George Martin, and we just did it like we did it live, and I just thought it was a recording test, and that was it. And then I got a call a couple of weeks later to say that George wanted to release it.
Wow.
And I'm very honest. I didn't think it was that great. I didn't think it was that great.
But you were wrong, though, right?
You're not always right. The thing is, it's like I flew down to London to do some bits and pieces to the record, and I asked the lady at Heathrow, the waiter Abbey Road, and she wrote it all out for me. And I did my thing at Abbey Road, and when I came back that night, she was still there. So I walked over to her, and she said, "What kind of day do you have?" And I said, "Well, everybody liked what I did, and I didn't think much to it." And I got an essay to do Want to Know a Secret, and I gave it to the lady. I said, "Maybe your daughters like it, and that was it.
So when did you know that, when did you start developing, the fans and the madness? When did that start? Was it after Do You Want to Know a Secret was released?
Yeah, it was like I got a good following around Liverpool, but funny enough, like Do You Want to Know a Secret was like, I always say, tell the story about it. Like I'm like this blue collar kid from Liverpool, and I get on the train and go to Manchester, and they had me like throwing secret files around the studio and pushing cabinets over and while they were playing Do You Want to Know a Secret. But at the time, there was a big thing going on in England called the Perfumo trials. It was a political scandal, and I go back, to Liverpool, and I get off the bus and the end of the street, and I'm walking up the street, and I see this crowd at the top of the street, and there's like 500 girls outside my house, and that was my whole life changed after that. It was crazy.
So then you recorded Bad to Me, and tell me about, I love the story, and I'm sure some of our audience has not heard it, about John playing you I Want to Hold Your Hand before it was released. Tell us what he said to you after he played it.
Well, but you want the Bad to Me first, or?
Yeah, sure.
I was doing weeks with the Beatles at every seaside, holiday place, the whole of the summer, and we were in a place called Bournemouth where I lived at one time, and everybody used to go. They used to set the gear up on stage and jam. It wasn't like a sound check like we do today. And they didn't carry a PA. We just used the PA that was there, whatever it was. And everybody was on the stage. Paul McCartney was playing, always played drums, funny enough. And John was stood backstage, and he was reading the Melody Maker, and he said, we just come into the charts. And I went, "Oh, that's great." I said, "I always thought you'd get there eventually, John." And he said, "Oh, yeah, by the way, I've got this song. I've got a song for you for your next recording." And I said, "Can you play it?" And he says, "No." So I'll play it to you. I was 20 that day, actually. And we had a party and everything. And then he said, "I'll see you at Abbey Road." And Beatlemania was really happening then. And I never thought he'd show, but there he was on the morning of that day when I was booked in Abbey Road. He turned up and he sat at the piano, because people always say to me, "What were the demos like?" And I said, "We didn't get any. Do You Want to Know a Secret?" was just him on an acoustic guitar. Bad to Me, he sat and played it. He played on the piano. And I thanked him for it, and he said, "I want to run something by you. Tell me what you think of it. I want your opinion." And it was, "I Want to Hold Your Hand." And I said, "Can I have that one?" And he said, "No, we're doing that one ourselves." And then I went on, people don't realize that making records, then from like hearing that song, having to arrange it and learn it, and record it in a day, in 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. Funny enough, Bad to Me, I started singing in the key of E, and I said to George Martin, "I can sing it in E, but I don't think it really sells a song. There's no real, I saw the song with light and shade and, different things I wanted to put into it. And George said, I know your vocal range, and and it just wasn't happening. So I said, I'm getting crazy here. Let's do the backside. And the backside, funny enough, in England was "I Call Your Name."
Wow.
We did "I Call Your Name" in about 20 minutes. And I said, why don't we release that and find another song for the bed to be for the backside of that, and find something for "I Call Your Name"? He says, no, he says, it sounds too much like the Beatles. And I said, well, that can't be a bad. It can't be a bad. What's wrong with that?
And you were one of,
break.
but you were one of the first artists then to be able to have both sides of the record, both sides of that single go up the charts, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Funny enough, like I'll Be On My Way. It was on the B side. If you want to know a secret, "I Call Your Name." Funny enough, I recorded that song a year and a half before they did.
Wow, that's crazy.
And but anyway, I just kept my fingers crossed. I mean, to me, I was like new in the business. I was, I often get a bit like not pissed off, but it's like George Martin. I give him all the credit in the world for everything he did, but he had a few little stabs at me about my vocal ability and a few articles, and I think he was out of place. I was a young kid. I was very uptight and nervous in the studio, and I don't think I performed as well in the beginning as what I did later on. And Bad to Me, we changed the key after a break, and we had it in 2 or 3 takes.
It's amazing how fast things were recorded. Do you ever sit back now, where you are today, and look back over 50 years ago and say sometimes, Jesus, that was me? I mean, does it seem like 50 plus years has gone by?
No, it doesn't. It's gone by. So, and the thing is, I mean, over the 50 years, I've made a lot of records that people in the United States are just not aware of. I was always like wanting to move on to different things.
And tell us about the records the records you did a few years back. It was an awesome record.
Which one?
The one from like 2013, 2014 to Liverpool with Love. And
to Liverpool with Love, that was I did a CD called "I Won the Fight."
Yes, that one.
Funny enough, I was in Santa Fe because I love it there, and I came home, and it was on my mind that Brian Epstein had been totally, to me, being given the cold shoulder, and I just couldn't understand why. This was a man who brought the Beatles to the world, and which gave the whole world so much pleasure. And it was like left out in the cold. I thought, and it was a Sunday night, and I thought I'm going to write a song, that I'm going to go back to and think of it like a 3-chord song, nothing else. I'm not going to go to a 4th, 5th chord. I'm going to do it in 3 chords. And I came up with the place that I grew up in. I'm here for lads and rock and roll to make the world come new. I had a girl. It just came, and I wrote "Liverpool with Love." That was the song,
right?
Which in it said something always bothered me. No one could explain, but why isn't Brian Epstein in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And I think in Beatles circles, it got a lot of, it was noticed a lot. And I think it got to a lot of people's ears. And the following year, Brian got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I was happy about. And at the same time, funny enough, I'd written "Liverpool with Love," and I wrote the song "Sunsets of Santa Fe." And, I called up a friend and I said, I haven't done any recording. I play guitar or anything in a long time. And I've got these tracks. And I went to his studio and funny enough, I sort of did the songs like Liverpool with Love and Sunset to Santa Fe. And I just started that with just an acoustic guitar. And I sent it to Chicago and had Billy Sullivan, great guitar player, play on it. Played slide and acoustics. And I pulled in Billy Kinsley from the Mersey Beats, did the vocal backings, all people like that. And then I put it all together in New York. And I thought, this is not bad. And I just went on I recorded songs that had been in my mind, for over the years. I redid a song I'd done years before, "You're Right, I'm Wrong," which is like a rockabilly thing, which I thought was a great song, but never got the push, And the thing "Breakfast in Marin" and the song "I Can't Keep the Dog Outside Tonight." And then I was sat with this guitar player, a friend of mine, Don Salenza, and I said, I've got all these songs and then I got to do something to tie them all together. And funny enough, I wrote the song "I Won the Fight."
Mm-hmm.
And it was within like an hour.
Wow. Well, I remember when we were years ago, it was probably just before that album came out, when I was working with Chad and Jeremy, and you and I were spending some time together, and you played up here. I remember we stayed over your house.
Yeah.
I think I got the couch, but we took a ride in your car one day to go somewhere. Of course, your license plate is bad to me, right? Still.
Yeah.
And you put a CD in of some of your new stuff, and I was like, we're on Facebook, so it's okay. I was like, holy shit, that is some awesome stuff, Billy. And I was so happy when you put that out. It was really awesome. I think your voice was unbelievable on that record, and it really was some great writing and just a great record. It's to me, it's better than even the stuff in the '60s. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad you think so, because I'll be honest with you, it was the first time, I'd made a lot of singles over the years. Like I recorded like 1941 before Harry Nilsson was even heard of. That was the first record I made when I left EMI. But unfortunately, I didn't have the big guns behind me. Brian had just died, and it was, it kind of got lost.
Well, you went out. You went out on a limb when you recorded things like "Trains and Boats and Planes" and "Little Children." I mean, people I've read. You tell me if I'm wrong. That people said, you shouldn't record that song, and you did, and you had a hit with it.
Well, when I, funny enough, what happened was I did something like at the London Palladium, and I recorded a Lennon McCartney song, "I'll Keep You Satisfied," which was at number 3, and everybody said it was destined to be number 1, and I did a terrible London Palladium, and it fell out the charts, and I thought, I've got to do something special. And I just off my own bat, I went around to all these music publishers, and I went to a place called Ryan in Sussex, which it's like it was hundreds of years ago, cobble streets, and they have this place there called the Mermaid Hotel, and it says all the kings and queens have slept in the different rooms, and it's like going back in time in history, and I was staying in this little thatched cottage with a friend of mine, and I was playing these acetates. I think I had over 500 acetates, 600. And one morning I woke up and I put "Little Children." I put it on and I went. It was the first time I had the feeling that this is a number 1.
Wow.
And it was Mort Schumann. He sang it badly and played the piano badly. And funny enough, I just didn't know how to tell Brian. And John and Paul had offered me 3 songs, and I said, I don't like them, And
so you hear that, ladies and gentlemen, Billy J turned down some Lennon and McCartney songs.
well, you're not always right. Sometimes you're wrong. But but the songs were recorded by other people and they never did anything.
Right.
So I will say that. And, it was like, I remember sort of like I was working with Cilla Black and took her into my house and I said, so what do you think of this song? I played a Little Children and I was saying, I don't know how to tell Brian. And the publisher was getting on to me saying, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to do this song or what? And then I went in Brian's office one day and he said, what do you think is going to be number one this week? He used to do things like that. And I went, funny enough, to searches with needles and pens. I said, funny enough, I bought it. And I think he got a bit pissed with me and said, well, how about Jerry? And I said, well, I tell you the truth, man, I don't like this record. It was, I'm the one, I'm the one who's, I thought it was a bit rinky-dinky, And he said, somebody sent me the song and he played me Little Children. I said, I can't make an opinion on one listen, but I'll take it home. Because let's face it, he'd done so much for me.
Right.
And I took it home. It was the only one, funny enough, I rehearsed the song with the Dakotas. It was the only one prior to going in the studio. And it was all my ideas, the drums, the rhythmic guitar, the whole thing. And when I went to Abbey Road, George Martin was there and Brian and Dick James. And I said, this is the best song. And I said, this is what I want to do. I think it's the best song. And Dick James was like, it's a bit near the mark and this, And I said, what's the matter? You bothered because you're not getting the publishing? I was beginning to learn,
Right.
And I did Little Children. And funny enough, it came out, it was not selling too well. And this friend of mine said to Brian, I think Billy needs a lot of promo, Brian. And Brian said, no, I think he needs a Lennon McCartney song. And then I did this video in a park, and it started to snow. And when you get the snow and it's them great big snowflakes.
Yes.
And the video turned out amazing, with all the kids on the roundabouts and the slides and snowing and that. And at the time, the Beatles had the record they'd sold like 68,000 in a day. After that video, Little Children sold 78,000.
Wow.
And funny enough, that was the start of Brian went a bit cold because a friend of somebody I thought was a friend told him that, Billy had that up his sleeve the whole time, Brian. So the relationship got a little cold,
Tell me about coming to America and doing Ed Sullivan.
Well, funny enough, I wasn't, with Ed Sullivan, believe it or not, I had sort of been in the Canary Isles, so I didn't know an awful lot about, I just knew the Beatles had done well in America, I didn't know, I thought they did Ed Sullivan show and blew it out great. I knew they would, because I'd been out here before the Beatles, and I just, I when I did the Sullivan show, I had a big conversation with myself and said, "You're not going to screw this up like you did the Palladium." And funnily enough, I went to the rehearsal and we ran through the songs. I went back to the hotel and I went back to the theatre just in time to more or less walk on. I didn't give myself a chance to get nervous, And when you think about it, if you sit and think about, hey, there's like 70,000 people looking at me. It's a bit of a scary thought, but I never even thought about it.
You mean 70 million?
Million, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say. 70
Yeah.
million. I mean, that's an amazing thing to, and of course, back then, in America, there was really only 3 channels, 3 networks. So you were able to reach such a huge portion of the audience, which was pretty crazy. Here's some video of you singing on the screen right now while we're talking. I want
Yeah, really young, innocent kid.
a young innocent kid. Well, you're still here and you're still rocking. So our final question, because you've spent the last 35 minutes with us, and I want to thank you. Tell us what it's like nowadays when you perform and you get to meet the fans after. What are some of the things that people come up and tell you about, and about the memories they have?
All sorts of things,
Yeah.
The thing is, funny enough, I've enjoyed it more since I did that album, I Won the Fight, because I always felt that, because of the success of the 60s, even though I was making records, it was hard to get the plays, people, it's like, I think like an artist is an artist, as far as I'm concerned, and doing that album made me realize that, how, I should have been doing things like that over the years,
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I mean, quite frankly, Paul does an album and the whole world has it, and Ringo, but it's not the same for somebody like me, and I don't have the big guns. But to me, it was like doing things artistically and being creative. To me, it's not about the success. I never think about the success of it. I just do things that I think, hey, this is something nice, and I'd like to share it with people, and I hope they dig it too. And when people say, like you just said to me, I like that album, well, it gives me a big kick. I feel really good about it.
Well, we're going to, when we're finished with this interview, we're going to play a track from that album. In fact, I don't remember which one it was. It was either To Liverpool with Love or I Won the Fight. We're going to find out. But Billy, I wanted to thank you very much for spending some time with us tonight, for taking the time, and we're happy to have you. So we're going to, by the way, there's your book up on the screen. Do You Want to Know Secret? Available on Amazon. So everybody should go and buy Billy's book. And we're looking forward. I hope we catch up soon in person when this whole coronavirus thing is over.
Well, I've got some new recordings when it's all gone. I'd just like to say this, everybody's having a hard time at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think, people say, oh, the world will never be the same. And you know what I say? It's going to be better, because I think we've got to learn from this, and we've got to make the world a better place.
Well, thank you so much.
That's the way I look at it,
Ladies and gentlemen, Billy J. Kramer, thank you for being with us tonight, and we'll talk to you soon. My love to you and Ronnie, and have a good night.
You too. Thank you very much.
See you later, Billy.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to go to the video of, I believe this is I Won the Fight. I think if I sent the one I think I sent. This is one of Billy's more recent recordings from the album that I really love. So here we go. I Won the Fight, Billy J. Kramer. Then we'll come back and chat.
I used to work on the railroad, 7 to 506. They said slavery was over. They paid me £3, 17 and 6. I swung a heavy hammer. They all stood around. I was trying to split a crosshead halfway on the ground. But it's all right. I won the fight. I started at the bottom. I never forgot what it's like. At 7 o'clock in the morning, I heard Buddy Holly had died. The people that I work with, they all laugh as I cried. I was chasing rainbows. They were into railway things. When I got a call from Brian, that's when I grew weak. But it's alright, I won the fight. I started at the bottom, I never forgot what it's like. Someone stole my new guitar, it shattered all of my dreams. I couldn't afford another, so I had to sing. I told the boss I was leaving, Mr. Walker put up such a fight. Oh, one great thing my father did, he came and made it right. But it's alright, I won the fight. I started at the bottom, I never forgot what it's like. But it's alright, I won the fight. I started at the bottom and I never forgot what it's like.
Awesome stuff. That was some newer music from Billy J. Kramer. What an amazing story that Billy has, and what an amazing piece of history. And the fact that we were able to speak to him tonight, and the fact that he and Ronnie are just great people, his wife and him. And I've been so fortunate over the years to work with a number of artists, especially from the British invasion. And in the years that I was road managing and booking gigs for Chad and Jeremy, we traveled around the country from here to Florida to California. But we were very fortunate that we got to hang out with Billy. Billy came to some of the shows, and I remember one night we went out to a place called The Lanes in New York, and it was Chad and Jeremy and Billy and May Pang. And I'm sitting there going, wow, you don't get any closer to firsthand knowledge than people like Billy, who John wrote songs for and said, here, have a song. Do you want to know a secret? Bad to Me. Amazing. And then May Pang, I was sitting next to her, and I'm like, Jesus, that was John's girlfriend. That's crazy. So it's like, it's been cool because I wasn't around in the 60s, but I've been able to meet some of these great people and become friends with some of them. And so it was great when all this stuff is going down that I can call up some of these folks who we've had great times with over the years and get them on so you can see them and talk to them and hear their stories. And Billy J, just, I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. I want Ben to find that picture of John, Paul, George, and Ringo with Billy in the center where they're holding the cups. If you could put that picture up while I'm talking, that would be tremendous. I'm putting Ben on the spot. When you think about this, I mean, Liverpool brought us so many great bands, you know, obviously the Beatles and Billy J and the Dakotas and Jerry and the Pacemakers. And there were just so many great bands, and the Cavern Club is just amazingly it's just known. So let's just pause for a moment, folks that are watching this show, and take a look at that picture, and that guy in the middle is the guy that I was just talking to. What perspective on the history of the world does that guy in that middle right there, Billy J. Kramer, have? I mean, look at that. I don't even have to say anything because you know who those other four guys are. So sometimes I pinch myself and say, wow, we talked to some really cool people, man. Anyway, thanks for putting up that picture, Ben. So amazing guest, amazing stories. I've heard so many of his stories in person with him over the years, and it's just great to get some of those stories out to you. And he's all over the place too. And if you ever have a chance to see Billy J. Kramer, whether it's at like a Beatle Fest or a personal appearance or one of his concerts, you really should go. He's such a great guy. His songs are awesome. His voice is still great, and he's such a nice guy to talk to, as you could tell. So, for those of you who enjoyed this walk down memory lane tonight, I say thank you. Now, tomorrow night, we have a really good shoe for you, if we're going to quote Ed Sullivan. Imagine that. Billy J. Kramer was on the Ed freaking Sullivan show with 70 million people watching him. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm a history guy, so that just it just gets me. It's amazing. All right. I've talked enough. Tell you about tomorrow night. A guy named Steve Forbert, amazing musician. Many of you know him from his 1979, 1980 era hit, Romeo's tune. Meet me in the middle of the night. Let me hear you say everything's okay. Blow me southern kisses from your room. A lot of people know that song. It's got that great piano intro. Steve's written so many great songs over the years. It's pretty amazing. There he is, Steve Forbert, Romeo's tune. He will be my guest tomorrow night at 8 o'clock right here on Ask Caswell / The Caswell Cook Show. So thank you all for watching tonight, and Mia's watching, and thank you for everyone that tuned in. Hang on a sec. Low battery means I got to end. So a lot of times we end with a prayer, only because, I don't know, it means something to me. It means something to many of you. I always say it's time. My atheist friends can sign off now. Good night. The rest of you stick around. It's Passover. It's Holy Thursday in the Christian world. In my church, in the Episcopal Church, we call it Maundy Thursday. See? Maundy. Interesting. It's the night of the Last Supper and everything. So I'm going to read something from that. And so maybe we can go to that quiet place for a moment and get rid of the distractions of the day and collect our thoughts and think about the things that we're thankful for, the things that not everyone can take for granted right now, which is health of our family and friends and our loved ones. So this is from tonight's actual service, that if there was still church. The Lord Jesus, after he had supped with his disciples and had washed their feet, said to them, "Do you know what I, your Lord and Master, have done to you? I've given you an example that you should do as I have done. And I give you a new commandment: love one another as I have loved you. By this shall the world know that you are my disciples, that you have love for one another." And I think whether you're Christian or Buddhist or Jewish, I don't know. I think those words probably mean something. So, amen. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching tonight. Thank you to Billy J. Kramer, my guest. Looking forward to tomorrow night. And we're going to take off a couple nights, Sunday and Monday. We're going to take off for Easter. And my guest on Tuesday night, when we come back after the weekend, is going to be Mike Panera, who was in Blues Image and sang the big hit Ride, Captain Ride. And then he was also in Iron Butterfly, and he was also with Alice Cooper. So he's a great musician. He's going to play for us. He's going to come on board from California and play some great songs. Thanks for the amens. I like that. Thank you, guys, at the end. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful night and a better tomorrow. Good night, everybody. Good night, Mom.